and welcome. It's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. I'm going to just be myself, talk about a few things, and I'm sure that at some point in this video you'll associate with some of those things that we're going to talk about. I know we're looking at charts at the moment. What we're looking at actually is the national grid for the UK, and on the right hand side we can see a 10-year diagram of how renewables have accelerated, how demand has dropped, what sort of electricity we have to put together to keep an ordinary 24-hour day going. It's in the realms of about 36 gigawatts. We're going to talk about a few different things. I'm going to talk about some of my personal things as well, and we'll try and make something of this video at the end, worthwhile for all of us, because I'm sure, at this time right now you're going through some of the things that I'm going through in life. I've been around our star 49 times now. Was married for 23 years, had a few other relationships after that, but in the end I brought a cat. She watches Netflix with me, gives me a bit of affection, and that really is, I suppose, what we all need at the end of the day. So this is going to probably be one of those videos that I'll massively regret doing, but I'm that sort of open and honest person that I'll talk about these things. We're facing a multitude of problems, and first of all, I'm going to apologise, because we seem to be on the doom and gloom of the scale of things on the videos that we do. And as a scientist, I'm always intrigued to do experiments. And over the last month or so, there has been like a social experiment being done on this very channel as to how resilient it is for its funding. So I drastically dropped off the videos that we were doing to see what would happen, and as I expected would happen, the funding dropped off massively for us at the observatory. And I understand it. I think I understand it. If there's no content, then why should people donate? If there's not somebody there on a regular basis saying, we're doing this work, this is what we do, this is the benefits you get out of it, it'd be nice if we could get some funding back out of it with a donation or two. I've never charged, in the last 8 years, I've never charged anybody anything for the information that we've give and provided. I will tell you though that it has cost a lot of money to keep the observatory running over the years. When you think about it, we've had very little budget in any case to start with, but what we've managed to do with it, we've managed to stretch it out. You used to try and buy the Trimag system that we pinpoint the magnetic North Pole with. It's the only piece of equipment in the world. No other organisation has it. But if you was to try and buy that, you'd be looking at probably in excess of £250,000 upwards, when you think about the electronics needed, the engineering, the programming, etc., etc. So the experiment that we conducted here, albeit just a light-hearted experiment, was to be just to show that what would happen if we reduced the content. What would be the outcome of that? Obviously the outcome was the reduced amount of funding. So we know that there is a vulnerability in our observatory. If we do not continue with the content, obviously things will rapidly come to an end. I say rapidly because the last week we didn't do any content. Well, a few days ago we didn't for a week do any content. There was no funding during that time. So we're very vulnerable. We know that now. So we need to sort this problem out. If you've got problems in your life, you have to identify them. in a situation, you have to say to yourself, how do we get out of this situation? This is a good life skill for a lot of people, you know, and it's just simple thinking. But you know, if you write this down and think about it, if you're in a situation, you know, I think it will be helpful for you. So you put yourself in a given situation. How do you see yourself getting out of it? What do you need to do to get yourself out of the situation? What actions do you need to take to do that? And you know, if you ask those questions in life, I've always found this, you know, that you'll find a solution to it. You know, it's not that difficult. So we're looking at the national grid. Let's try not to digress too much. Obviously, I'm doing a different type of video. And I'm going to talk about some personal things. I'm sure you'll associate them. We'll try and keep it as well, you know, interesting with some, you know, some data. Let's say that. So here in the UK, we're looking at this chart from the national grid. It's not going to be too much different from what is associated with all around the world. All energy companies will be looking at probably something similar to this. You know, we're trying to do away with fossil fuels because the agenda or the narrative is saying that we've got to reduce CO2 because CO2 is causing global warming. You know, if you follow me, I think I've provided more than enough evidence to rebut that, but just for those that have seen this video for the first time and they're hanging in there, you know, we contribute so little compared to natural contributions to CO2 in the atmosphere that it is laughable. There is no scientific peer-reviewed papers that prove that the amount of CO2 that man emits into the atmosphere is a constitution to increasing temperatures on this earth, or global warming simply. So we know that, yet as we know that and scientifically understand that, and we have the facts to rebut that, for some reason humanity is being driven down a road in favour of that scenario, despite all the facts. You know, this is what we're dealing with now, I feel, on a multitude of scales. It's not just CO2, and it's not just the environment, it's not just climate or global warming agendas. You know, it's the same with everything in our life. You know, we are relying on the most inaccurate information and living by that. The reason why I'm showing this chart with the national grid is because there's a situation which has arisen in the last, I suppose, 6 years that has caused a problem for the majority of people in the UK and around the world. And it stems from, obviously, CO2 agenda and global warming agenda. And what that is that when people started to buy electric cars and charge them up at off-peak times, obviously to save 50% of the cost of charging that car up, energy companies realised that, you know, during the twilight hours, you know, the early morning hours, there was no solar generation being produced and being put into the grid. And on top of that, if they had you know, no wind to power the wind turbines, you know, that meant a double hit for the energy company, and then on top of that a third hit because people were consuming the electric at, you know, increasing rates over the last, I don't know, 6-7 years. And we can see that demand has dropped, and I question that because of all the electric cars that are coming onto the market now. And I just want to put this into perspective so that you can understand it. On average, the general household will consume around 7 to 10 kilowatts, Most of this energy that the household is consuming is refrigeration. You know, your refrigerator is on constantly, and then you have a lot of other sources in your house that is consuming electricity on top of that, like if you've got electric cookers and other, you know, lighting and heating, and it all depends on your circumstances. But on average, you know, the average household income, well, at least mine does, because I had my annual consumption of kilowatts, and when I worked it out, it was 7. But you know, I give the extra 3 kilowatts for, you know, people having bigger houses and, you know, consuming more electricity than what I did. The point is that we consume on average between 7 and 10 kilowatts. If you buy one of these electric vehicles and charge it up just once a week, you will add 140 kilowatts to that demand of electricity, or your consumption. And that's a substantial increase, and that's why the energy companies have now doubled, and they are going to probably triple the cost of our electric globally. It's because of the increase in the electric vehicles. And you know, even people at the energy companies that I spoke to, you know, confirm this. It's the electric vehicle consumption during off-peak hours, you know, having 50% reduction on that electricity, or that 140 kilowatts that they need to charge the car. There's so many, and Robert, I know you're listening to me, and you're agreeing with me, and you're nodding right now. There are so many reasons why these electric cars are bad for us all right now. First of all, you know, this world in our current economic situation can't afford this CO2 net zero. We certainly can't afford electric vehicles. You know, people that are buying these cars are completely oblivious to how environmentally unfriendly they are. Not only do we have to charge these cars up with 140 kilowatts, can you imagine if there's no sunshine and there's no wind, then guess where your electric company is having to provide the energy to get to those 35 gigawatts that we need in a 24-hour period just here in the UK, as an example. This is the same scenario from around the world. Well, they're obviously having to rely on gas-powered generation, which burns CO2. Yeah, they might have to pump storage, which is again exploiting off-peak electricity costs, where you get 50% reduction. So what they do is they pump water from a lower reservoir to an upper reservoir during the twilight hours, you know, the early hours of the morning, where the electricity rate is cheaper, and then they allow that water to come through water turbines during the day and put that back into the system. So, you know, it's like having a battery. We also have nuclear power, which some people would argue is not very clean. Okay, in the terms of CO2, it's very clean. You know, there's not a lot of CO2 emitted with nuclear power generation, but there is, you know, the storage of nuclear waste, and you know, this is leaving our future generations a problem to deal with, because, you know, in some terms, the half-life cycle of some, you know, nuclear waste is probably around about 400,000 years. So we're going to leave our future generations with, or many future generations with, a lot of problems in the future. And then there's obviously the way we store it, which is, you know, I do like nuclear power because it's clean. You know, it's very efficient. It's, you know, on the terms, it can be cheap as well. But what I worry about is the way we store the waste, and that, you know, eventually if we're storing it in containers underground, the containers have a very much life shortency expectancy as what the nuclear material does. And of course, if that decays, then we end up with a biological problem seeping into the water bearer Sartre that we'll probably be drinking in the future. So, for that reason, I don't like it, but for other reasons I do. If we was creating nuclear power on the moon and somehow transmitting it back down to Earth, I would like that. One way we'd probably do that in the future is by, setting up a nuclear power station on the moon, having a laser beam down to a solar array during the night time, and probably we utilise that power that way. But then we're probably going to create a lot of nuclear waste on the moon as well, and is that really a good thing? Another way, I know you might think I'm babbling at the moment. I'm trying not to babble. Another way of generating electricity is through fusion, so they claim, but I've not seen one of these fusion reactors run for longer than 2 minutes, and I really doubt that is going to be the future for us powering our demands in our homes. I don't think, despite the billions that has been spent on fusion reaction, is going to amount to anything. It certainly hasn't at this moment, and the reason for that is I think that they've based a lot of their understandings on the way fusion reacts from our sun. And the problem is with our sun, it's been proven a long time ago, is that it can't be operated by fusion reaction because there's no neutrinos, there's not enough neutrinos emitted off the sun to support that. When you get nuclear decay or nuclear reactions, you have emissions of neutrinos, and they're certainly not being emitted off the sun at the rate that it should be to support nuclear fusion. So we don't even understand the way our sun works at this moment. I mean, why the surface of the sun would be less hotter than the photosphere, which is like the sun's atmosphere, is not understood correctly. There's something else going on, and they haven't worked it out yet. And if they're basing their technology on the sun to create nuclear fusion, not nuclear fusion, nuclear fusion, nuclear fusion. If they're basing that technology on that, then it's not going to work, because the sun isn't operating on that level. This is what I'm trying to say to you guys. I've been on this planet 49 years, and I see a lot of issues that are just being swept over. They're not being fully understood, and even with the understanding that we've got, we're not working with it. It's like someone comes up with an idea, and let's see the idea to the end. The end could be forever. We could work out that problem forever instead of taking alternative routes. We're just on more. The reason why I'm doing this video is because I'm a little bit. I'm trying to find the best words to think of. I don't have a lot of optimism for the future of humanity. At the rate at which we're going, things need to drastically change, and they don't seem to be. And what seems to be increasing is the opposite. Instead of us getting to a point where we are becoming better at looking after ourselves, we're getting to a point where we're literally depressing ourselves, making matters much worse for ourselves. And when you look at the future, for many reasons, just the ones that we're creating for ourselves, that it's very bleak, and things are going to get worse for us all. And I think the pace at which they're going to increase in getting worse for us all is going to exponentially increase, unfortunately. I'm not a doom and gloomer. Nice things do happen in our world, but I have to say they are becoming very few and far between. It's not every day that a nation of people can say that they are all happy in the way in which things are going, because I think if I ask that question to a nation of people today, they would be very disappointed. The reason for that is that we are all, and I think you'll agree, running fast around the wheel for just now them bare essential necessities. You know, what we worked for 20, 30 years ago would be more than enough, and we'd have some left over. Now, you know, we've got lease after, you know, the month's pay. And I know some of you out there are, if you haven't already started to do that, you will soon start subsidising your credit cards and whatever other means. And, you know, with interest rates going up, inflation increasing, you know, none of this is going to get any better. But I'm going to change the screen of what we're looking at now, because I want to show you something else and just briefly talk about this, because it's not just the problems that we're creating. You know, our world governments have failed to acknowledge something very blatant taking place right before our eyes, and I'll just get to that right now. And I know what you're saying now. Oh my God, he's dragged out the interglacial and glacial, you know, 450,000 year chart. But your reality is right at the end there, encircled. And I don't think you need to be very intelligent to work out what happens next in your future. Because every time in that interglacial period where the red line has surpassed the black horizontal line, you know, we have gone back into a glacial period. Now, if our governments around the world have been saying we need to prepare for the next glacial period and we need to raise money for that, I would not be able to argue with that. I would even agree. You know, that's what we need to do. We need to protect the continuity of our species. But they're not doing that. They're saying the complete opposite. They're saying that, you know, we're global warming. You know, the ice caps are going to melt. Yet we've seen in the last 10 years a rebound of the ice in the Arctic Circle. You can go onto poleshiftnews.com, check out sea ice extent maps. They're updated every day, and you'll see for yourself the truth. You know, we throw in a 780,000 year rare anomaly, the geomagnetic pole reversal, on top of that, where we know that the magnetosphere declines during that period, and cardiac arrest and cancer increases. You know, it looks even more bleak, doesn't it, our future? The thing is, you can listen to people like me, and whether you choose to act is another thing. You know, I could have saved tens of thousands of people in the last 5 years, hundreds of thousands of pounds, if I was able to reach out to them, and if they had been able to I'd been able to reach out to them, and they'd listened to me, they'd had taken my advice. I'm going back to Florida, you know, in the video I done yesterday. I said to people, you know, you need to re-evaluate your geographic location of where you live. And if your property is on a floodplain that hasn't flooded for 80 years, then don't be so complacent to stay in that property. You know, it was strange that somebody said in a comment section, you know, we've been flooded 11 times and then decided to move. I couldn't believe it. And this is a beautiful example of what I'm trying to say. I could tell somebody 20 times and they still won't respond to what I'm trying to say to them. This guy and his family got flooded out 11 times. And I couldn't even believe the next comment that I read. They said we've got flood insurance. Oh my God. Try telling that to the people that whilst they was pushing their wives out the windows of the house so that they could grapple onto a tree so that it wouldn't be washed away in the torrents of flood water, whilst they said to their wives, I can no longer hang on. I love you, and goodbye. This is the mentality we have. You know, when a situation arrives like this, you have to act fast. You know, if you have planned for this event, you will automatically, because of your self-programming, know how to respond in a given situation. If you've not planned for this event, then you will probably give up very quickly, and that will be a matter of life and death. People say to me, where's the best place to be on this earth, Gene, whilst all these events are happening? Well, you know, you're as well educated probably as me as to the frequency and the magnitude of these events and where they're occurring globally. And the point is that we've got to be very cautious wherever we are. And that means that we all should be prepared, because the time insists that we are prepared. We shouldn't have to be flooded out 11 times in order to make a decision, because that was 11 times of just pure sheer luck that no one in your household was lost at that point in time. You've got to look at your geographic location, and you have to be prepared to, at a certain point, you know, during one of these crises, abandon it. Walk away from everything, you know, because if you are here alive today and you have your health, yet you've lost all your belongings, at least you still have life. And you have to think about sustaining that life, and that comes down to some preparations, things that your governments clearly are not insisting that you do, because everyone right now on this planet should have a bug out bag. We've all seen many times in the last few months what is capable of happening. Afghanistan floods, Pakistan floods, China floods, Florida floods, you know, early forest fires started in California, earthquake damage, tornadoes, hurricanes, tsunamis, and many other anomalies, such as the geomagnetic reversal, which is the slow creeping wolf in the room, creeping up on its prey. You know, the grand solar minimum, adding to the arsenal or part of the wolf pack, you know. Your mainstream media is not informing you of what you need to know. It's only on little sites like YouTube, social media sites, where the individual that has had a bit of a life experience will you know, reveal some of the things or some of the obstacles in this gauntlet to you, so that you can take action. And it's not time over for anyone. I don't believe that. You know, we are more than capable of, you know, seeing this through. Even if it lasts another 100,000 years, we're a very resilient species. You know, we have, in our short period of technological advancement, managed to conquer under the oceans, on the land, in the air, and in space. So we're very capable of adapting to environments, and we need to be prepared to do that. You know, I'm not saying add, you know, diving bottles and you know, build yourself an ISS. You know, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that you can prepare on a small scale, that in time of a crisis or an event that happens, you know, you are, you know, miles ahead of everybody else. No fresh drinking water because of the flood, you know, it's brought all the sewerage up. Doesn't matter if you've got the right equipment. They've been drinking their own urine on the International Space Station for years, you know that. With the filtration systems that we've got today, you can filter out pretty much everything to pure, clean drinking water. You know, you can buy these, they're inexpensive, you can chuck them in a bag. Fire strikers, primitive way of lighting a fire. Just learn how to make a bit of kindling, you can have your fire going, you know, whilst everybody else is soaking wet. You found yourself a bit of highland, you can get yourself set up, chop a bit of wood, you got a fire going. You've got heat, you've got water, and then if you've put up a little bit of food storage in that bag, you've got a meal. You know, that makes you about 80-90% more better off than everybody else at that point in time. If you've got a tarp, you can erect a temporary accommodation over your head, or just to keep you out the elements, so that you can keep warm, keep dry. You got your food, you got your water. You know what? We've almost ticked off all the important, necessary boxes that you need to survive any given event, just with those few things. And I bet you a lot of people could put that together for less than $40. And that has got to be the cheapest life insurance for you and your loved ones you could ever get. What it requires is not waiting 11 times to be flooded out for you to move. What it requires is for you to be assertive and get those things as soon as possible. Because I keep saying this, it is just by sheer luck it hasn't come round to your front door. Now, I'm going to flip this onto another subject, just randomly flip it over, but I just want to end on this. Well, I was going to go there, but maybe that's for another video. I've just seen that this is running at over 30 minutes, so I won't keep any more of you longer than what I should do. But think about some of the things we've glanced on here. We've only just marginally touched on them. Some people will experience something 11 times before they act. Are you one of these people that are going to put your hand in the fire 11 times before you act? Are you going to be prepared before you even put your hand in there the first time for what will be the repercussions and what you'll need to do afterwards? I'm trying to help people based on my life experience, based on my professional scientific knowledge, trying to inform people, give them a heads up of what to expect. I think I'm doing a much better job, and you'll probably hate me for saying this, than a lot of world governments, because they are not informing the people of just some simple basic provisions of what human beings should have as a standard. So we have a huge job to do, and I'm hoping that you find it worthwhile supporting someone like us at the Observatory, because we're not just an observatory. We are actually looking out for our brothers and sisters globally, wherever they are, whatever ethnicity they are. We are all the same species, and we are all going through this crisis together. If you want to support something along those lines, the link is down there in the description, and of course you can become one of our patrons if you want as well. So I will say, guys, apologise because this is a little bit of an off the cuff discussion, but I just felt like I wanted to talk to you guys about it. I know it's a little bit off the cuff with regards to what we're normally talking about, but I think it's relevant, it's important, and it can be not only informative, but it can actually help people. If you find yourself in a situation, you've got to find yourself looking for a way out of that situation, if it's a bad one that you're in. And the only way you can do that is by sitting down and asking yourself, you know, what is the way out of this situation? What are the mechanisms that get me out of this situation? And you have to act. You have to act. That's the important thing. Okay, took enough of your time. You know what? Take care of your loved ones. I love you lots. As always, guys. Bye for now.